I don't want to just blanketly use longevity as like the main selling point to sauna, but it is a genuine fear in the United States right now that people are not going to live a long life that's fulfilling with great health span. And people don't want to live to 90 years old if they're sitting in a bed from 60 to 90 years old. Like, that's a fear of mine. Sauna therapy specifically, a lot of the research that has continued to come out between 176 degrees to 214 degrees is showing that there's amazing longevity effects on the body. 4 to 7 sauna sessions weekly results in a 50% decreased all-cause mortality rate compared to those who just sauna once a week. Consistency isn't sexy, but it's like, if I just continue to show up in the sauna every single day, or 4 to 5 to 6 days a week, I'm going to be healthier.
Okay, today on the podcast, we have Pete Nelson, founder of SISU Sauna. Right where we're sitting right now, we have a SISU Sauna that's probably 25 feet away from us here at BPN HQ. I've had my fair share of SISU Saunas at this point. I love them. Love what you're doing. Pete, welcome to the show.
Man, thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, you might have the most amount of SISUs of any customer, but it's excited to sit here and chat.
I believe in it, man. I believe in the product, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show today, on the podcast. Talk about your journey, building the brand, building the business. I love building businesses. I love bootstrap stories. I want to learn from you what you're learning. I want to share that story with other people. It's inspiring. I know it's hard. I know you're in it right now. But I wanted to kick off with a question to really dive in before we discuss any of that. As I was previously talking to you, I was listening to your conversation with Cam Hanes that you had, I guess, a few months ago at this point.
Yeah, April.
And one of the things you guys were talking about in that episode is the important, and you only touched on it briefly, and this is why I want to dive into it, because I think it's really important. You talked about the importance of our children watching us struggle and driving through that struggle to persevere and succeed. Why is that so important to you, that your children are experiencing and watching you struggle, whether that's through physical challenge, building a business, personal challenges? What is the significance of that?
So when I have 2 kids, so my wife and I, we've been married for 6 years. We've got a 3-year-old boy, Crew, a 1-year-old daughter, Charlie. And, you know, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, it's a blue collar, it's a gritty city. And so I got to see my dad, who worked a middle-aged 9-to-5 job, same thing with my mom, every single day, like, live below their means, but also at the same time, show me like what hard work actually looks like. And so my dad, when he would get back home from work at the end of each day, he would go out in the yard, pull the weeds, mow the lawn, take the garbage out, do all the stuff that like isn't sexy. And I would watch that. And like, that was the example that was set to me at a very young age. And I got to see that compound over time. And then I got to a point mid-teens where I had to start taking care of my grandparents at their house 1 block down the street. And so that's where I learned how to mow the lawn. That's where I learned how to flush out the all the stuff down in the basement. Like, all this stuff that would just get you nasty and dirty. Like, that was the stuff that I was doing. But then I got to learn from my grandpa too, who was a military officer in the Marines, of like, this is how you do it. This is just what you do in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I got to see that at a very young age. And then when I went out to college, you know, I was able to go play college ball for a second, college basketball. And then I got into CrossFit and then running. And I got to see and got to feel like everything that my parents were working on actually be personified through the work that I was doing. And I got to like kind of latch onto that momentum. But it was like still that blue collarness that I loved. And once we had kids, it became very, very evident that the lifestyle that we were building could become probably too comfortable. And it's scary to me. It's a genuine fear of mine that my kids are going to have too comfortable of a life because of what we are affording them to do through like what we're building with our company. You know, like, yeah, it's great that like we get to, you know, impact lives and stuff. But at the same time, it's, you know, like, yes, I get to take care of my family through this business. But as a result, like, how can I make sure that my kids get that blue collarness to like get dirty and like work hard. And so for me, I'm super conscious about being on my phone around my kids. It's something I continue to struggle with, but I'm very conscious with.
Especially as a business owner.
It's sometimes it infuriates me sometimes, like my tendency to want to pull up my phone while I'm sitting there while my kids are playing with their Transformer toys. And I'm over there shooting a text to somebody after when I committed to my wife that like at 4:00 in the afternoon, I would be done and like it's time for the kids. And so I'm hyper aware of that. And I think back upon like what I saw from my parents, and I just want to continue to cultivate that. So, like I take my kids on runs with the double wide Ironman jogging stroller and they love it. But the first couple times they were like, Dad, what are we doing? Are we going to the park? It's like, no, we're going for a run. And once you continue to do it over and over, they don't know any difference. And so it's gotten to a point now where my wife and I, when we go for our runs or we go to work out in the garage or we go to the local gym, like our kids want to be there and they want to play and they want to run. And now like my son who's 3 just ran a mile around the block with my wife. And my wife didn't say, hey, go ahead and just go run. I want you to keep up with me. No, he just willingly got out of the jogging stroller and just started running.
It's amazing.
It was the coolest thing in the world, man. And so like me as a father and then my wife, Paige, is like, like we want to have more kids, but it's just utterly important to us that we lead through action and not through just what we're talking about. Like they need to see us struggle. They need to see us hit that breaking point. Like we went and saw my wife run 3 half marathons so far this year. And it's a big deal for my wife. She just PR'd post baby or post second baby at the Grandma's Marathon up in Duluth. And like
it's a good marathon. I was signed up for that a few years ago and then got canceled during the pandemic.
It's a big marathon. Highly recommend it. And the 2 half marathons prior to that, we got to actually bring the kids to go watch and just see them light up when Mom ran by and like my wife came over and gave both the kids a kiss. You can't put a price on that. And like that's the stuff that they're going to remember, but also they won't know any difference.
Right.
Because this is just what they see all the time.
Yeah, I used to think that the goal of working so hard was to provide the opportunity for your family, for your children specifically, to not have to work as hard as you did. Like I'm going to front load all this work so that you don't have to. But I had it so backwards.
Yeah.
It's not providing your family and your children and generations to come with the opportunity to relax and be more comfortable, but you're putting in that work so they can see it, so that it builds values and a foundational system that they can then apply to their life to teach their family and their family's family. And it builds and is this standard you set for everyone after you. And earlier this year, I've talked about this a lot, but we were pursuing a deal with private equity. And a lot of the reason I was pursuing this deal with private equity was to move out of an operational role in the business so that I could be more present at home, didn't have to work as much. And as I started moving in that direction, I realized this is not at all what I need to be doing at this point in my life. One, I'm still young. There's still a whole lot I want to do. But more importantly, my children, my daughter is still young. We still have children that aren't potentially born yet. My son is going to be born next month. And I don't want them to grow up in this life where dad doesn't really have a job anymore. He's just doing what he wants to do because he's done with that point of his life. That ain't it.
That's the culture of your family right there, right? So it's just like the culture of your business is rooted in action. It's rooted through like people seeing you work. And like those are the values that you're enthralling through BPN. It's the same thing with your family, right? So it's like if your kids see that, yeah, dad had it real good and he worked really hard, but now he doesn't have to work hard anymore. And like he just gets to like sit back and sit on the couch for the rest of the day and maybe go for a run here and there. Like, what do you think like the kids are going to think about that versus saying like, no, guess what? Like dad runs a really successful company, but also at the same time, like he loves what he does. And I get the energy from it every single day. But I also got to see him lead through action, not just like in my household, like through the way that he treats mom, the way that he treats the kids, like us. But the same way he treats the kids and mom is the same way that he treats everybody at work. It's just like consistent all the way across values, culture. It's all derived through action. And like, dude, you've been a guy ever since I've like started following you back in the day. It was like, you've always been a guy through action. You've always led through action. You just do what you want to do.
It works. Action works.
Yes. But the thing that isn't sexy is the consistency. Like nobody wants to be consistently like great at something. It's just like, like it feels really comfortable to work my ass off for 3 to 5 days and then, take my foot off the gas for another couple and let's just do it again versus just being, like you mentioned in the past, like consistently good. Mm-hmm. It's that compounded in your family is how you become an incredible dad. And that's how your kids 10, 20 years down the line, when when you're doing the toast at your daughter's wedding, that's the stuff that they're going to be talking about.
Right. As you were growing up, and I know you talk a lot about your dad.
Yeah.
And he was a runner, hardworking man. I knew you guys recently did an ultra marathon together, which I want to get to at some point in this conversation. But growing up with your dad, what did he do or demonstrate, or what did you learn from him that has instilled the work ethic you have today? Like where was he challenging himself? Where was he sucking? Where was he suffering? What did you see on a daily basis from him?
So for me, it really started when my mom, my mom had epilepsy, and it really started when my mom and I and my sister got in a car accident on Christmas Eve. I was young. I don't remember how old, maybe 5, 6 years old. And she had to go in for emergency brain surgery. So there was like a risk that she could pass through the surgery, but also my dad had to step up to be the true caretaker for not just my mom, but also the 3 kids. And through the process of my dad having to like flip the switch to be like the primary caregiver, you could see like something turned on in his head. Then he started getting more into philanthropic endeavors. He became the president of the Epilepsy Association in Cleveland. He became the president of the Alliance Club for like blind people in Cleveland. It was incredible what he was doing. And he definitely had some sort of calling from God to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And when I was 17, that's when it really started to hit. My mom fully recovered. My dad needed at that point a new thing to be able to challenge himself. And so he, for him, he smoked from, chain smoked from 18 to 48 years old. When he was 48, I was 17. He committed to running marathons, cold turkey, from stopping chain smoking directly into marathon running. And don't get me wrong, my dad was a great athlete. But so his first ever 100-miler, he was 49, 1 year into his running journey. That's when I did my first 50K. And so
Same race?
It was a different, so the same year that he did a 100-miler, him and I both did a 50K. That was my first ultra. I was 17, just about to graduate high school. My dad called me a pussy halfway through the race because I wanted to quit. And I'll never forget that because like, here's my dad who's 48, 49 years old, and I'm 17 thinking I'm like hot shit. And, here he is like continuing to run past me. I'm like, I can't let this old guy beat me. And so like, that's where like the competitive drive started to like really kick in for me. And then he did his first 100 a few months later at the Graveyard 100 in the Outer Banks. It was from Corolla down to Cape Hatteras. And I got to pace him for the last 50 of that. And when
you truly saw your dad in the pain cave.
Hard.
But before those moments, did you ever see him suffering like that?
Not quite like that, unless if we were playing basketball out in the driveway. We'd play like 33 one-on-one type of deal. And we would, shed some blood a little bit, throw some elbows. And, if the ball was going into the grass, we'd like dive for it and stuff. It was so fun. Like that's just what we did. So it was always kind of gritty. But that's when I think even he realized like I need to be more vulnerable in front of my kids. And when I saw him going across these like wild horse grates by the Corolla turnaround point, it was mile 99. And like these grates were spaced evenly by 1 foot at a time. and his feet were just roached, man, like the worst blisters. And he took a step on every single rung of that wild horse grate, and the pain that he was in was indescribable. And like I couldn't understand, but like I was 49 miles into pacing him. I had never gone that far in my life, so like I was kind of bent out of shape, but not like that. So when he crossed the finish line, like tears were coming down his eyes. He's just like, man, I'm so proud. Like he wasn't proud of himself doing it. He's like, I'm so proud of you for being able to come and do this with me and be able to like stay with me on this. And like I learned a lot on that first race. And so that's continued to compound. And so since running that first marathon that he did when he was 48, he's done 145 marathons or greater of distance since then. And that also included a cancer bout with tongue cancer. And then he had to relearn how to walk about a year and a half ago when he had a stroke in the post-op room after his surgery to remove the cancer. So I had to help him relearn how to walk. This was right when our daughter Charlie was being born. And I mean, it was just so wild. And so since his cancer bout and his rehabilitation to be able to relearn how to walk, he's ran 6 marathons or greater of distance since then, and 1 in Antarctica. So it's like, I don't know, like if I need anybody else in my life to like show me what hard work looks like other than my dad. Like he just continues to compound like his action over time, but he loves it. And what's also so cool is like my kids get to see it. And he's got tattoos all over his legs of like different races all from around the world that he's done.
Dude, I want to hang out with your dad.
Dude, he's a legend, man. A true legend. And it's so fun. It is so fun. But when I wake up in the morning and I don't want to run, I just think like, well, my dad who just relearned how to walk about a year and a half ago is probably out running right now. I should probably go for a run.
I'm sure your dad's so proud of that. Like I want my kids to look up to me in that same way.
Same, dude, same, 100%.
And I want my kids to see me suffer in some sort of physical challenge. I don't think work, as defined by like the work we do professionally in terms of things we do on our computers or our phones or emails or meetings, you can work really hard at that. And you can make a great living and you can provide for your family and it's very respectable. But I don't think it delivers the same message and intent to your children as when they see you in the pain cave, sucking. You're 50 miles into a 100-mile race. Your feet hurt. Your soul is crushed. But somehow you find the will and the courage to drive another 50 miles across the finish line. I want my kids to see me do that.
Dude, I feel equally as much about exactly what you're saying as like me showing love to my wife, like in front of my kids too. Like, you know, like growing up in a military family, like it was handshakes. There was no hugs. There was no like, I love yous or anything. Like I had to tell my dad, like I loved him. And that was like one of the hardest things I ever had to do, which is so crazy to say. But then like, you know, like if I'm around our kids and our kids are like sitting on the couch, like watching Blippi or something like that. And like, if my wife and I are on our phones, like we'll both like kind of understand, like, wait a second, like this isn't right. So like, we'll go like get the toys out, play with the kids. And then like, I'll give Paige a hug and give her a kiss and say like, I love you. And like our son sees that and he like walks over to us and like leans in on us. And like, that's the stuff that like I want equally as much as like, I want our kids to see us suffer. I want them to see like, this is what love looks like. Because like, I don't know, part of being a man, like you have to like have both sides of the spectrum there. You can't just be one-sided. And that's something I think like I didn't have growing up that like now I'm realizing I'm trying to cultivate in our family. And I saw that from my wife's side of the family. Like when I saw like the best model relationship in my in-laws, like you can't ask for a better relationship than like what they've had. So I'm like, Paige, I make it a point to like, this is what we do as a family.
Yeah, I do think it's really important that you said that. I will admit that's something I could do a whole lot better at. Just acknowledging that and being very honest right now, that is one of my weaknesses. I had 2 interesting dynamics growing up. My dad's side of the family were all dairy farmers. So it was very transactional in the way that you raise a family it's like those kids were born pretty much to work the farm.
Yep.
There was not a lot of I love yous. There was not hugs and kisses. I've never seen my grandparents on my dad's side hold hands, kiss, say I love you, any of that stuff.
No.
My mom's side, though, so warm and affectionate and loving. I mean, like my grandma would, like, the moment she saw you, she'd pull you in, kiss you on the cheek, and start crying.
Yeah.
And she did the same thing to my grandpa. So I've had two different dynamics growing up, and I've always viewed both sides of the family so different. Same love for both, but just like complete different feel. But it starts with the leaders of the family to set that foundation. That is something that I could definitely improve upon.
I mean, we all can. I need to, but I think we're just aware of it. I think it starts with awareness, but again, at the end of the day, it's like, I want to live a really good life so my kids can live a good life, but like it needs to be rooted in like the foundational principles. Like, you got to work hard, but you got to be a good person, and you got to show love to the people that like actually matter to you.
Right.
Like, if you could do that, you're going to be fine. But if you're not around and you're not exposed to a family that like really shows love, or really shows the opposite, where it's just like full on grit, like you don't know any difference.
Well, I think that was a really good foundation that sets the stage for the remainder of this conversation.
Yeah.
Because the way I view you building SISU, I resonate with a lot in the way that I built BPN, investing in people, caring about the brand, trying to build a business the right way. So I highly respect what you're doing right now and the way you're doing it. I think it's very intentional, strategic, and smart for all the right reasons. With that being said, let's talk about SISU. Let's talk about their journey of building the business. I love entrepreneurial journeys, especially bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Self-funded, self-started, making all the mistakes along the way for all the right and wrong reasons, and then learning from those and trying to get better. What is SISU?
Man, so let's first say like SISU is a Finnish word, and the Finnish word is actually a concept, and there's no literal translation to the English language. And SISU means perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. And so it's this Finnish concept that Finns specifically embody through everything that they do. Ironically, in Finland, it is arguably the happiest country in the entire world. But a lot of it is due to their ability to display grit and perseverance and tenacity based off the conditions of their environment, based off of like their work conditions. But no matter what, at the end of each day, they go to the sauna to break bread. And so for every 2 people, there's 1 sauna in Finland. And so if there's an average of 4 people in a home, well, they have an indoor sauna and they have an outdoor sauna. And after dinner, they go to the sauna, and that's just where they culminate the entire day and talk about what happened. And there's no phones. That's just what they do. They don't know any difference. And so that whole Finnish concept is what we've really built our brand around here in the United States, because we believe that that's something that is lacking in the United States. And so that's where, for us, when we got SISU up off the ground, actually before we went even into manufacturing ourselves, we were a wholesaler for another manufacturer. And that's where we really learned how, what sauna is, how do we want to market sauna, what are the types of saunas that people are looking for, what are the price points.
How long were you doing that for before launching SISU?
Yeah, maybe 2 years, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years.
Was it going well?
No, not at all. So I was a personal trainer, then became a manager of a gym, and then ended up owning the gym with my business partner, Tom Rini, Black Flag Athletics in Cleveland. And on the side, I realized that there was a need for sauna, because not only did I know like how I felt with sauna, like how I felt after in the recovery, but there's a massive way for us to be able to increase performance. And so through this, we ended up creating like this side hustle so myself and one of our customers at Black Flag. And in that, we just started slinging saunas to people only in Ohio, because we had the rights to only in Ohio for this manufacturer. And as you could imagine, Ohio's not the market for sauna. And we would probably sell 1 sauna every 2 months. And then COVID hit. And we had a period of time where we didn't have a single sale for nearly 12 straight months. So it was March of 2022. My business partner, Nick Daddis, and I looked at each other and said, this is kind of a waste of time. And we should probably dissolve this dealership, the wholesalership, and just keep going in our own directions. At the time, our gym brand was continuing to take off. At the time, he owns a brand called University Tees. He also, him and his wife are about to buy a local library and convert it to a school called the Acton Academy, which is a learner-driven, like entrepreneurial-driven environment.
I know of Acton Academy schools.
Yeah, so he opened up one in Cleveland. And
I've had Matt Boudreau on the podcast.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, I mean, I admire the model like no other. So we're just kind of going our separate ways. We made that decision at 5:30 a.m. on a trail run in the morning. 10 minutes later on the same trail run, we're like, wait a second, there's a huge problem at hand here. Why are we having such difficulty selling saunas? And we just kind of, like any entrepreneur does, you just start going down the list of like, oh, this is what I would do. These are the ideas. Like, what's the perfect sauna brand? If we were to throw away the playbook completely, how would it look? Or how would it feel? What heaters would we use? What products would we be doing? And how could we approach it differently? Not just to be different, but to like make it more simple. And 10 minutes later, after making that decision, we ended up deciding at that point that the best next step for the evolution was actually to lean in even harder and manufacture ourselves. So we went from not selling anything to being like, how could we do this better than anybody else has, but do it in a premium and simple way that's rooted in trust. Like those are the three big pillars that we've built the brand on. And so
you didn't sell a sauna for 12 months and the solution was to double down on saunas.
Yes.
What'd your wife say?
She thought we were in for it. And she thought that, yes, she supported us, but she thought we were crazy.
It reminds me of one of those situations where like, this is either going to be our best idea ever or our worst idea ever.
You are exactly
right. No middle.
And so we found the perfect manufacturing facility in Cleveland, Ohio, in Amish country, where we could handcraft every single sauna and get wood from the United States in Idaho and ship Western Red Cedar from Idaho and mill it on site in eastern Cleveland, and then be able to do so in 4 weeks and get it created and shipped in 4 weeks. But then also from a marketing perspective, keep it stupid simple. So when somebody goes to our website and they see our products on there, there's not a bunch of options. It's just whether or not it's going to be indoors or outdoors. Do you need a roof kit or not? That's it. And that's allowed us to be able to scale. So from March of 22 to August 1 of 2022, August 1 was our new launch date as the manufacturer. And we launched one SKU. It was the Edwin barrel with no roof kit. That was it. And then after the first 10 to 15 or so sales, we realized that we needed a roof kit. So then we added that variant for that SKU. And then we just heard from our community that they wish that there was a 2-person sauna. So we ended up, creating the Eddy barrel, which is the smaller version of the Edwin. Launched that with roof kit and without roof kit on Black Friday of 2022. And up to this point, now it's July 5th. Those are the only 2 SKUs that we really have. We've had a shower. We pulled the shower SKU just because it ended up creating some headaches. And then we've got one other SKU that's like a very, very niche SKU with the wood burning sauna. That's my favorite experience. But at the same time, it's just not everybody's going to want a wood burning sauna. So we've been able to build the brand off of 2 types of barrel saunas, or I should say 2 sizes of barrel saunas. And we've learned everything of like how to approach business, how not to approach business along the way. But most importantly, kind of like how you've always built with BPN, it's like the team, man. And it's been so fun building the team and trying to scale with preserving the culture. That's been the challenge, but also at the same time, the most fun part.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about that. Before though, really leaning in and talking about simplicity. We're in the middle of our 4th of July sale right now for BPN. And 2020, our team was significantly smaller than it was or is today. And 2020 was one of our biggest sales ever. We might have had like 8 to 9 people on the team. And then 2021, 2022, even 2023, our sales during like our 4th of July and Black Friday sales were better, but the team was much larger. The business was larger. And we kept looking back to 2020, discussing what did we do in 2020 compared to 21, 22, 23? Simplicity. We kept messaging clear, communication, customer, user journey. Now that's just around a sale.
Yeah.
Like keeping things simple, keep it streamlined. The business as a whole, what I've learned is as you grow and scale a brand, a business, or any part of your life, the easy and natural thing to do is to layer on complexities, especially as more people have ideas and opinions and all these opportunities feel like really good opportunities. Complexity on top of complexity on top of complexity. You see businesses do this all the time. They start off and they launch 20 SKUs, 20 products, with each product having 5 variants. And they grow this massive catalog. And then when you do a year-end review, you realize 5 of those products are driving 85% of the sales. And the dozens of other products are not making any incremental impact on the business, but it requires so much time and effort.
And marketing spend.
So something we've done even this last year is, I look at it as like pruning at the end of every year. Prune the business. Are there products you don't need? Are there marketing initiatives that aren't working? Are there departments that aren't necessarily efficient or effective? You have to prune a business to allow it to grow. And keeping it as simple, which is not easy, but keeping simplicity at the forefront is so important, especially as you grow and scale. Because if you don't, you will crumble and you will break. The best businesses maintain simplicity. Apple, Steve Jobs is a mastermind at simplicity.
Yeah, when you look at like the complexity of a Apple product into itself, like, me as the consumer, I don't care about what's going inside the computer. I just want to like understand how to use it, and it's intuitive. And the messaging for me to be able to, like, when I go into apple.com or even like Tesla, if I were to go in and want to buy a vehicle, I don't want to have I don't want to have all these options because I get decision fatigue, right? So like for us, if somebody's coming to our site, like they are definitely interested in sauna. But also at the same time, like when they go through and you look at like some of our competitors, like where there's all these different types of like heaters and all these different types of like roofing shingles, and then, you know what I mean? Like for us, the fact that it's just really whether or not you need a roof kit or not, and then everything else this is what we vetted out to be the best sauna experience for you at this price point. Like it becomes abundantly clear that for the customer, they trust our opinion off of that, but also like most of the people come to our site from guys like you or guys like Eric Hinman or Todd Anderson, and they value their opinion just as much. So it's like they see them using it, they're having fun, and they're building this great wellness-driven lifestyle, and they're including people. But then they come to the site and then they see like, oh, this is actually like pretty straightforward. Here's the sauna. Am I put it inside, outside? Great, add to cart, and then it's shipped within 4 weeks. Like that simplicity is something that lets us scale. If there's one insight that I've come to agreement with the entire team from the last 3 months, is that complexity does not scale. And yes, all of us have great ideas, but at the same time, like when you know what your purpose is, you know what your mission is, and you know, like for us, our 3 pillars being like the premium, simplicity, and the trust, it's like, well, whatever we do needs to stay within those means. So like we're not going to do something that's going to cannibalize on on the customer experience when they go to our site and all of a sudden they can't buy because there's too many damn options on there.
Do you have any examples of complexities you've layered into the business that have been bad ideas as opposed to good ideas?
Yeah. So at the very, very start, we had 2 different heater options, and there was a economy heater that was reliable. And then there was the Whom heater, which is like more premium, very like user oriented and like high rock volume. And so like we noticed that more people were buying the Whom heater just based off of our brand and the marketing, but there would be maybe 1 in 10 people would buy the economy heater. So which now means like from an inventory standpoint, you have to have like 2 different types of heaters, then 2 different types of like electrical setups, and then 2 different types of rock and enough rock to be able to ship. And so like what we realized right then, we were like you said, pruning the business. Well, if only 10% of our customers want that, why not just direct all of our attention toward this one, right? And just make sure that like not only is the heater reliable and premium and it's on brand, but like we could just lean in even harder on the way that we manufacture our saunas to make sure that it fits like the heart of the sauna, the heater is perfectly fit for it. We don't have to like throw in a bunch of different ones. Now, what I will say, because we are hitting like that 2-year inflection point right now for the business, we could continue to do exactly what we're doing and not bring in any other types of SKUs. But what we're realizing is not everybody wants the barrel shape. It's an aesthetic preference for some people. Sometimes like people want to sit up higher in a sauna where their feet are above the rock. And so it's one of the reasons why like we're about to unveil our cabin saunas. And these cabin saunas are the exact same footprint as our barrels, except there's 2 tiers. And not only that, but the experience lets for more natural light to come through, and it's more square. So like for us, if I want a square modern preference, great, there it is. If I want a barrel shape, there it is. There's not heater options. It's just, here's the heater. It stays true to our principles. It's just whether or not you want a barrel versus a box now. And so that adds complexity. But at the same time, we understand based off of the market of research that we've done is that we're going to be able to open up to a much larger market based off of an aesthetic preference and light preference. So that is a level of complexity that we're going to have to navigate here over the next month to 2 months in terms of marketing on our website. And then we don't run any ads. So like the messaging on the ads is something that like we don't have to really worry about yet, but our email marketing needs to be dialed. Our social media needs to be dialed. And those are things that we're going to learn here in real time of like, does that messaging work? Does that not work? We're going to learn from our buyers like real quick, whether or not if it's like confusing or not, but I think we've got a pretty good plan ahead of us.
I mean, we have the barrel Edwin sauna, which sits like 6 to 8 people. And we've had a Hume heater in all of them. Like the one inside HQ right now, we obviously don't have the roof kit on, but I can imagine the cabin style one is going to be preferred more from like an indoor aesthetic.
Yep.
Like I would much rather have that one indoor because like we love the barrel sauna, but it does look a little funky indoor.
Yeah.
Looks great outdoor.
Yeah.
But I mean, what could end up happening, and I think I've reached points of the business right here where, like, say you launch the cabin sauna, and everyone starts buying the cabin sauna, and no one's buying the barrel sauna anymore. As like a business owner who like the product is your baby, it's really easy sometimes to be like, no, we're keeping the barrel. That's our foundation. That's our flagship. When everything's telling you, go all in on the cabin. I've done that with products before where I'm holding onto a product just because there's some pride behind it.
Yeah.
And all the data is telling me, just continue that product, man. Like move on, build something else, put your time into like the hero SKUs and let some of these just go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So for us, one of the things when we're talking simplicity, we knew that we wanted to keep the same construction process and assembly process and the build out process the same as the barrel to the cabin. So it's what we were actually able to do is make it to where it's like even easier. It's still like the staves that go around, but we made them in panels. So like when it showed up, it's the same crate size as the Edwin, as the new cabin style saunas. But it lets our team and our Amish team be able to just continue to produce exactly what we're already doing on the barrel side as we do on the cabin side. Like there's no difference in like the material differences. It's Western red cedar out of 2x6s, milled, convex, concave points of the wood. And what we essentially did was be able to make it to where there's like 4 to 5 different staves all adhered together. And then you could just easily just put them right onto the panel, screw it in, and you're done. And so I'm pumped about that because it's simple for the end customer. It's also super simple for our team. And it's something that we could continue to repeat over and over and over and over. And we didn't have to like redesign the wheel.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, because the initial test phase of this was a completely different style product. Like what I've sent you with our new cabin sauna is very different than what our first initial R&D products were.
I believe it. I believe it.
It was almost laughable. And so I'm so happy because it feels like it's on brand, it's simple, it's premium. But it's something that like I'm proud of. and I know that the team is proud of. And what's cool too is that we ended up locking down the names of the saunas, and it's going to be the crew cabin sauna after my son.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And then the Charlie cabin sauna after my daughter.
Super cool.
Yeah. So
how did you get integrated into the Amish community?
Oh man.
Because I'm from central Pennsylvania, man. And you know, right outside of, I'm from Palmyra, which is right next to Hershey, which is down the road from Lancaster. Lancaster has a huge Amish community. I mean, growing up, horse and buggies everywhere. There were Amish bakeries and restaurants. And for 2 summers, I worked for Department of Transportation. I was a flagger. So I did like the slow and stop flag. And when we were working on roads, and there were like a combination of cars and horse and buggies coming through. So I'm very familiar with the community and their farms, and somewhat familiar with their culture. And I know there's a big presence in Ohio as well, especially being so close to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how'd you guys team up?
Oh man. So the same day that we made that decision to pivot into manufacturing, the first thing that we thought of was like, who is the who in this, right? So I'm never thinking like how I'm going to get it done. It's really like who could put us in the position to be able to get this done the right way. And so my business partner, Nick, was like, hey, my business partner at University of Tees, his dad used to work for an Amish manufacturer for these Amish fireplaces. And maybe you should just give him a call and just see what happens. And so he sent me his number. I jump on a call with him, and his name's Al Troyer. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, you know, Pete, I think there's this guy. His name's Mark Polari. He's a Finnish guy, and his dad's a first-gen Finn, and he has this perfect facility. And he's a Christian guy, great values, family guy, works his freaking tail off. I think he'd be a really good fit, but I don't know if he has the ability to do it yet at scale. But you should definitely give him a call. So I'll never forget driving to my best friend's house in Lakewood, Ohio, with my son in the back. I'm talking to him like over the car speaker. And I was like, hey, Mark, I'm Pete. This is going to sound like absolutely crazy, but we want to build barrel saunas. And we want to do it in a way to where it's simple, but they need to be Amish handcrafted because they need to be with the utmost quality. And Al Troyer told me that you're the guy to do it. And he's like, come meet me at my shop next Wednesday. We'll grab some coffee. We go out there, and we chatted for a bit. It was becoming extremely clear that this was the perfect fit. The guy, Mark, owned a company named SISU Designs 2 years prior, making Amish handcrafted furniture. And he also has a 65,000 square foot facility for us to be able to partner with him on, to be able to bring this project to life. And he also has 8 guys, Amish guys, to be able to pull this all together. So Mark owns a facility that let us be able to get it completely off the ground. But that was like the initial phase. The next meeting, he came to my place in Lakewood, Ohio, and we sat in the sauna that we had back there from our old manufacturer. And our first business meeting, we all had not write in the rain notebooks, but like full on like normal notebooks, just writing down, notes about like, how do we want this to look? How does this feel? Like, this is our business, like how do we want to structure from a legality side? And we're just dripping on our notebooks, and like the paper's sopping wet. And it was the most productive meeting I've ever had in my life, because everybody it was like the perfect who's to get it off the ground were like in that sauna. And it was like the impact that we knew that we could potentially have by doing this the right way. It was there. And the way that we were able to get it truly off the ground from there was being able to get our first brand ambassador on. And that first brand ambassador, Eric Hinman, he's from New York, but he's super familiar with the Amish community too. And so when he heard that like our saunas were Amish handcrafted, he was like, holy crap, like this is going to be something incredible. So I learned a lot from the marketing side of like, how do we respect the Amish community, but not let that just be like a huge pillar of how we market. It needs to be part of it, but the Amish community is just unbelievably well respected, but they're super down to earth. We have so much fun together. When I show up to the shop, everybody's just like big smiles, having a good time, like that they love building saunas. And the fact that we're able to push much, much more volume through and be able to see how they've gravitated toward like building their own culture within the four walls of our manufacturing facility is like unlike anything.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that story. Before you started actually selling saunas, what was you were selling saunas obviously through like a wholesale distributor, but
Yeah.
what was your experience and knowledge and expertise around the sauna and the benefits from? Or did you just enjoy saunas because of the feel you got from it, the recovery? Did you know all of this extensive research was out there?
No, definitely not. And most of the research hasn't really come out until it was like 2018 when this incredible report came out of Finland talking about longevity in sauna therapy. But at that time, like I knew how I felt when I got out of the sauna.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody just, like you and I, if you don't know much about sauna therapy, it's just like, yeah, well, I know it's good for me. I don't know durations or sets or, protocols and stuff. I just knew that it made me feel good. It made everybody else feel good. And there was an endorphin rush after. And, but that was it, that there wasn't anything really beyond that. And then really once like the manufacturing arm started going, I knew that I had to be not only well adversed in sauna literature and the research that's come out, but I just wanted to be like a very unbiased like guy on sauna therapy.
Right.
So,
well, we should talk about some of the benefits.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the benefits of a sauna, and they're real benefits. They exist. If anyone listening does want to like learn more about sauna benefits, I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick
very good.
is a great resource. She has some really good podcasts on everything sauna, benefits, how to use, when to use, duration, frequency, temperature. But then there's a few things we can probably talk about.
Yeah.
One, we do know that the benefits from a sauna are dose dependent.
Yes.
So the more that you use a sauna, the better results you're going to get. The greater risk reduction in disease such as cardiovascular disease, dementia, neurodegenerative disease and disorders. So like the sauna has been shown to significantly, if used frequently and often, reduce risk of, like I said, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's. I recently had Max Lugavere on the podcast, who a lot of his research is around lifestyle intervention, diet intervention for diseases such as dementia, Alzheimer's. What is your main selling point around sauna benefits, usage, time, frequency, all those things?
Yeah. I think when you look at it from like a healthscape in the United States, specifically after the health scare that we've all had, like during the COVID pandemic, and I think a lot of people had to look themselves in the mirror and look at their lifestyle and look at their family and like how long people are living. And so I don't want to just blanketly use longevity as like the main selling point to sauna, but it is a genuine fear in the United States right now that people are not going to live a long life that's fulfilling with great health span. And people don't want to live to 90 years old if they're sitting in a bed from 60 to 90 years old. Like that's a fear of mine. And so
yeah, I'm more concerned with health span personally
same.
Than lifespan.
Yeah. Like if I could live 70 great fulfilling years and I'm just rocking for 70 straight years, I'm pumped about that.
Same. I feel the same exact way.
Yeah. And so sauna therapy specifically, a lot of the research that has continued to come out between 176 degrees to 214 degrees is showing that there's amazing longevity effects on the body. And what is fun, like you mentioned, is the dose dependent effect of 4 to 7 sauna sessions weekly results in a 50% decreased all-cause mortality rate compared to those who just sauna once a week. And so it's like anything, again, consistency isn't sexy, but it's like if I just continue to show up in the sauna every single day or 4 to 5 to 6 days a week, I'm going to be healthier. It's the same thing as a workout. Like, for me, like the sauna is a low barrier for entry because all I have to do is just go and sit inside the sauna and I feel good during and I feel good after. And there's a moment of that perseverance, that tenacity, bravery, like that sisu effect that you're going to experience in the sauna.
It gets uncomfortable.
It could get hard. Yeah. And I think it's important. But what that teaches you though, and what it encourages is more activity and better eating and better sleep. And I think that that's one of the underlying principles of sauna is that it encourages you to do more. And I think that when you look at sauna, when you position it, like for me, ideally, the way that I do it is I do it 4 to 5 times weekly at around 190 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes at a time, about an hour prior to bed. Because what ends up happening is that when I'm in the sauna, my body induces a fever of 101, 102 degrees. And then post sauna session, I step out of the sauna, and then my body is going to compensate in the opposite direction to bring the body temperature below baseline. Well, it's the same thing that's happening when you're tapping into that parasympathetic nervous system state when you're in bed, because your body's trying to cool itself off. So what you actually did is you actually cooled your body off even quicker prior to bed. So you're able to get to sleep quicker, stay to sleep longer. And I think, like, to me, it's like, well, if I'm already getting the recovery effect of sauna while I'm in the sauna, and I get the amazing like aerobic effects of sauna because I'm in zone 2, basically zone 3 sometimes, depending on how hard the session is.
It mimics exercise.
Yeah, it's great. Now, I think it's an exercise mimetic, but it's not an exercise replacement.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I want to be really careful to say that. But, like if I'm an aerobic athlete, if I'm a strength athlete, it's a great tool for me to be able to get my cardio in on top of the cardio I'm already doing. So
it's not like you're adding, you can't run 40 miles and then do 2 hours of sauna and say you ran 60 miles.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
But it will still have positive benefit on the heart, on your cardiovascular system, because heart rate increases.
Yeah.
You sweat, blood pressure increases, very similar effects that happen to the body during exercise.
Yeah. So to me, it's like pretty simple. It's like, how can we get more people in the United States sweating? Because there's an alarmingly high percentage of the United States that's obese. And so it's a lifestyle thing. And to me, it's like sauna is a lifestyle amplifier. Like whatever I want to do from a wellness standpoint, like it could be amplified through the use of sauna because it encourages me to exercise more. It encourages me to eat better. It encourages me to get better sleep if you position it the right way. And then like you could amplify your sauna session by introducing a cold plunge too. And so there's more and more research coming out about contrast therapy when it comes to just sauna and cold plunge alone versus together. But when you look at it from like an anecdotal side, like to me, like when I have like my Oura ring and it's like everything I'm getting back from like my sleep quality and data post sleep when I wake up in the morning, the nights that I sauna, it's no coincidence that my sleep is much better and I feel much better in the morning. I think that the biggest thing is if you are going to sauna at night, an hour or two prior to bed, you must drink water with electrolytes. Otherwise, you're going to notice something in the morning when you wake up. You might feel a little lethargic.
Yeah, I prefer using the sauna at night before bed.
Yeah,
but I have a routine where I'll always get a shaker bottle, add electrolytes, mix it up, put it in the fridge.
Yeah.
Then I go out in sauna, typically 20 minutes, 200 degrees is where I like to set it. Come back in. Well, first I'll sit outside and just like let my body cool down.
Yeah.
Come back in, drink my electrolytes, and then do my routine for bed. Last winter, we didn't have a cold plunge then, but the way our whole outdoor setup is we had our SISU sauna right next to our pool, and our pool had a hot tub too. So what we would do in the winter, because the pool would get down in the low 40s,
it's cold,
get cold. We'd go from sauna to pool to hot tub, and we do a few rounds of that. Talk about like shocking your system.
Dude, it could get, and it's so fun to be able to host people doing that.
That's
too.
what we would do.
Like if you get 6 guys all together doing sauna, cold plunge, hot tub, you got like, some good electrolytes like flowing through and like everybody's having a good time. You're throwing water on the rocks. Like that is an ideal night. But I think but that's like why like Finland, like the birthplace of sauna, like why it's blown up so much over there, and why it's now starting to blow up over here is because people miss that in-person relationship driven time without their phones. Because we're always like so on our phones all the time. Like the sauna is so hot.
You can't have your phone.
No, you can't.
It shuts off.
And like, but even if you can use it, you're sweating so much you can't use your keyboard.
Right.
Right. So like that into itself is worth having a sauna for most people. But I think like when you take sauna therapy, when you take like a high heat room with great steam and great people, like that combination is like what they call lolu in the Finnish culture. That is like the magic of sauna. And when you combine it with cold plunge, like there's nothing like a cold plunge that brings you to like the present moment. Like that's therapy into itself.
Take a shot of espresso.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But there's no consequences most of the time, And so actually my wife and I, starting this coming Monday, when we drop our kids off or drop our kids off at daycare, we're going to come back, instead of going to grab coffee, we're going to start doing a cold plunge before we start work on Monday mornings. And like, that's just our time together for 3 to 5 minutes to just do that. And it'll be hard, but it'll be so fun. It'll be like a way for us to be able to connect. And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll do sauna at night. So like to me, like the perfect day would be you wake up and you cold plunge in the morning, and then you'd sauna at night. And then there would be an early morning run involved around that cold plunge. And then there's like a strength session around that, like midday, like lunchtime. Mm-hmm. Like if I could do that, man, like life's good.
Yeah.
Life's really good.
I'll try to talk Steph into that, but
well, dude,
we'll see.
You got a month and a half here, and then she's going to probably not even want to look at a cold plunge for a bit too.
Yeah. She's not a big fan of the cold plunge. We'll get like toes dipped in, and then she's out.
Yeah.
My first introduction to the actual sauna was infrared. So a few years ago, when infrared saunas were like blowing up online and became very popular, I jumped on it. I got a infrared sauna, put it in the house, and I hated it, to be honest, because it would take me an hour to heat that thing up, and then I have to be in it for an hour to actually break like a really good sweat.
Yeah.
I couldn't amplify the heat, and I would use it maybe in the beginning. I was using it all the time. Then I got to the point where I was using it once a week, and then I wasn't using it at all, because when you're busy, you don't have time to turn it on, let it heat up, sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour. And then when I first used the SISU sauna, because the first one you sent to me, and I remember it got delivered on my driveway, and I didn't set it up for probably 4 to 6 weeks.
I almost flew out just to build it out. And I told you, like the first time I met you in person, I was like, one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in the company was not to fly out to build it out for you to get you going.
But the reason I didn't really like rush to set it up is because my experience with infrared was so poor. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to set this thing up, and I got to find the time to heat it, and then sitting there for an hour. So then Jordan came over one day. We finally put it together, cranked that thing up. It got I was like, holy, this is hot. Yeah. This is heat. And what's nice is like you have the apps, you can control it. I'm coming home from the office or I'm at dinner, I can turn it on, the Whom app, heat it up. And within 3 to 4 minutes, I'm dripping sweat.
Yeah.
But what I want to ask is the rocks.
Yeah.
So when you add water to the rocks, because like I'll bring people in and they know I'm going to dump some water on the rocks.
It's the best.
They're like, hey, Nick, just let us just chill for a second.
Yeah.
Because I'll close those little vents.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'll pour some water on the rocks. And in a matter of like 15 seconds, it is significantly hotter. Is that adding humidity to the air? Is that what that does?
Yes. So when you look at like a perfect sauna session to me is between like 180 to 190 with like 30-ish%. To me, like 30-ish% humidity. So what you do is you essentially add the percentage of humidity to the amount of heat that's in the room to like create like the temperature. So it's like 210, but it would be like 180 with 30% humidity. Like that is no joke. And like talk about something that will just completely like bring everybody back down to baseline real quick, or like
you're just
the ultimate equalizer.
You're trying to breathe at that point.
Yeah.
You start freaking out because doors closed, vents are closed, and you can't catch a breath.
It's legit. Yeah, I mean, it's really a heat barrier. So like for all the research, again, like I was alluding to earlier, it's like between that 176 to about 214, that heat range, that is ideal. But you can pour water on the rocks, and like the best heaters have high rock volume, which means that there's more surface area of the rock to heat up the room and be able to maintain the heat. But you also, like in a perfect sauna session, you want the rock to be able to heat up for at least an hour before you pour water on the rocks, because then the rocks are going to be able to continue to hold the temperature, right? So like if let's say your sauna heats up in this Texas heat within 30 minutes or 25 minutes or 20 minutes, like, yeah, great, you could get in there, but I wouldn't advise putting water on the rocks then, because you would actually cool off the rocks and then actually decrease the temperature of the room if you don't give the rocks enough time to be able to actually get up the temp. So like some of like the best sauna sessions you'd ever have are where like the rocks have been like heating up for like 3 hours and they're scalding hot, and then you pour water on the rocks and it's just like, it's no joke. It is no joke. And like the best sauna session I've done was out of a wood burning sauna, because the rock volume's like 200, 300 pounds. And you've got this like cast iron heater that's like touching all of the rock. And when you're pouring water on the rocks, you see like the water like dance off the stones all the way down to the base of the heater. And it's just like this, like all of your senses are heightened. But the other night I had a good buddy over, and he poured, I think like 7 to 8 ladles of water continuously on the rock. And this is in the new sauna. And so when you're sitting up high, it got dicey really, really quick, but it's fun. We just sit there for 30 seconds to a minute after, and you just kind of let the steam take over you, and it's great. It's so
It's a great
fun.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of anyone passing out in a sauna?
Yeah. So, I have not, like in my time, seen anybody pass out in a sauna, but I have seen people when they're doing sauna cold plunge get very dizzy and need to like take a moment to breathe.
I've gotten super dizzy before.
Yeah, I had that happen to me a couple weeks ago. A perfect contrast therapy session typically would be like 15, 20-ish minutes in the sauna, and then you would have a 5 to 6 minute cooling period. But in that 5 to 6 minute cooling period, Instagram tells you to go right from the sauna to the cold plunge, but that's not advisable. Rather, it's more like 2 to 3 minutes of being able to acclimate after the sauna session, so your body's able to come back down in body temp and come back down to baseline or closer to baseline, and then you get into your cold plunge. But people just want to cool off right away. So it's like you're going from like this vasodilation in the sauna to vasoconstriction, the complete opposite. So like all like blood flows like no other in the sauna, and then you get into the cold plunge, and then all of the blood rushes right back to your core, and you get real dizzy. You could get a head rush, and it's euphoric, but also at the same time, it's like, I wouldn't say it's the most advisable thing. You want that couple minute interval between that sauna and cold plunge to be able to stave off that feeling of passing out.
Yeah, when we used to do the sauna pool hot tub,
Yeah.
we would get those feelings all the time where you have to like stop,
Yeah.
take a breather, take a break, reset, get some water, get some electrolytes, because it does get kind of out of control, or can get out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah. It could get real nasty, especially when you got some competitive dudes rolling with you too, because people want to stay in the sauna longer. They want to stay in the cold plunge longer. But that's the fun of it though too. To me, it's like some of my favorite ones are when I'm with some like my best like running friends that are like busting out sub 3 hour marathons, because they could hang.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes it fun. Throw on some good music, hang out. So
Yeah, one of the things that I like to do when it gets really hot and uncomfortable, because every day can be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could go in and hit 20 minutes, 200 today and feel pretty good. Go in tomorrow and I'm suffering the first 10 minutes.
yeah,
So I'll try not to look at my watch
dude.
for as long as I'm like, all right, I'm not looking at it. I'm like, I got to be close. It's like, I'm probably at 19 minutes right now. I look down, it's like 14 minutes.
Yeah, and you're like,
Crap.
it's the same thing with like your nervous system. Like we were just talking about, like the Texas heat could just suck it out of you. So like when you're hitting a workout and you had like that real good run the one day and you're like, man, like I'm on top of the world, but then your nervous system's just depleted the next day and you sauna, like that's where I think it's super great to be able to say like, yeah, like I usually like it at 200 degrees, but maybe today I take it down to like 190, 180 and still get the great benefits of it. But for me, I struggle with that because I'm so competitive with myself. I'm like, no, man, like that's your baseline.
I'm the same way.
You're gonna stay at 200 and just deal with it. So
yeah, you got to almost auto-regulate your
yeah,
sauna usage in the same way that you would your workouts.
That is a great point, and I would definitely say there's a couple like big time CrossFit Games athletes that actually program sauna therapy sessions at varying humidity levels and varying heat levels as actual workouts. So they'll go in at 220 for 15 minutes at 10% humidity, and then the next day is like their zone 2 recovery aerobic day, and they're actually going to go into the sauna at 180 with as much steam as they can tolerate to keep themselves in zone 2. So I'm not saying like I'm all about like being intuitive, but also at the same time, like if you are going to get real picky about it, you could have a wearable so you could get that feedback of like where your heart rate's at to keep yourself in that zone 2. Like what Todd Anderson did a 30-minute sauna session in our new cabin sauna the other day, and his average heart rate across the 30 minutes was 161.
Wow.
And he was in zone 5 for 4 minutes. Like
that's wild.
So you could like, if that tells you that you can make your sauna ridiculously difficult, you can. I'm not saying like you need to every time, but if you want to have the choice to like have another thing in your training to be able to display grit, build mental toughness, build aerobic, your aerobic conditioning, like, yeah, you could easily do that.
I mean, I'll be honest, when I go into a sauna session, I want to come out sucking.
Just wrecked.
And I do. Like, but my favorite thing is I come out of that and I sit on a chair or a bench out of it, and I chill, let my body come down to body temperature. But when I was in bodybuilding prep, I guess almost 2 years ago now, when we were creating the YouTube series around it, I had this one segment of the videos called Post Sauna Thoughts, because when I'm in the sauna, I can't have my phone. Yeah. There's no distractions. And when you start suffering a little bit, it starts getting uncomfortable, your mind will try to focus on something. And I know that when my mind starts to run away from that discomfort, it's going to focus on something that's at the forefront of my brain.
Yep.
And it's probably something I need to address or think about, dissect. And then for the remainder of that sauna session, I'm just thinking about that one thing, trying to keep my mind off the heat and how the discomfort, how uncomfortable it is. And I would come out of that sauna session with some really good perspective and ideas, thoughts. It was really meditative and good for me during bodybuilding prep. That's one of the reasons I love it, especially at the end of the day. You've had a lot of things going on right before you go to bed. Have some clarity.
The clarity and the reflection period. Like one of my things I'm supposed to be doing that I don't do enough is journal. Like it's built into my day, but I end up like doing some other stuff that I probably shouldn't even need to be doing that I should be doing to journal. So like at the end of the day, similar to like a morning run for me, like if I'm doing a morning run or that sauna session, it's super reflective. And oftentimes like whatever problems or issues we're experiencing in the business, I could actually like take time to like run through those in my mind and create a solution after a run or create a solution after a sauna session. It doesn't happen every time, but it's the solitude that I get from a sauna session. It's the solitude I get from a run that are very, very similar. And to me, it's like an amazing productivity tool for me as I grow the brand with our team, is being able to have like the 20 to 30 minutes by myself or with my wife to be able to dissect some issues that are going on and be able to create solutions for it through that solitude.
So kind of transitioning this conversation a little bit, I want to focus on from a family perspective, from an athlete perspective, entrepreneur, business owner perspective, the importance of the people in your life. And another thing I heard you mention on the podcast with Cam is like these key pillars to health. Train hard, sleep well, eat healthy, be outdoors, spend time with good people, let the rest take care of itself.
Yeah. The rest is usually a distraction.
Yep. And I believe in that fully. Spending time with good people is so important. The social aspect of that being surrounded by good energy, good people. I'd say it's easier to do personally. Sometimes it's harder to do professionally. As you've built SISU and things you've learned from your family, your dad, his mindset, mentality, as you've grown SISU, you've built the business, you've added more people onto the team, you've worked with more partners, athletes, potentially agencies. What are some key takeaways you've learned and you've kept in regards to building culture, maintaining culture, and the importance of the people you bring on the ship for that journey?
So this is something I've never really talked about on a podcast regarding our team. We have more people in our family that work in our business than probably most businesses have. Mark has his two sons, Travis and Tyler. Nick has his brother, George, on our team who runs our sales department. I have my sister who's my EA. Blake, who's our director of ops, has his brother who's our product support guy. Like, we just have a lot of people within the family where it's a 1 degree of separation. Now, I know a lot of people say do not mix family with business, but like, I'm all about a good unconventional like way about going about things. I'm not saying to just do it unconventionally, but what that forced us to do to me is like there's 2 pillars to like a great hire. It's the 1 degree of separation, meaning that if I'm looking to hire somebody, whoever I'm going to hire into the business needs to be somebody that is being referred into our business that person could vouch for, who's referring us to that person through trust. So like, if I reach out to you and you're like, hey, like I've got this really, really good social media manager, or this really good email marketer, I want to know like your experience with that person. I want to know like what went well, what didn't go well, like what were like the bottlenecks, what weren't the bottlenecks, like what did they do really, really well? If there was like one thing in your organization that they did best, like what was it? Like I want to know that stuff. But what that did, it put that hire directly into a position of trust where I trust you, right? As this relationship like builds, like I want to know, and like whoever I'm bringing in, like I want to know like everything I need to know about them. But 2, they need to be a GWC. A GWC is a get it, want it, capacity to do it. So the 1 degree of separation through your referral, but also the get it, they understand the concept, right? Like they have complete competency to be able to carry out whatever that process is within the company. They want it. So like there's a genuine desire to want to do it. Like this is their passion. And then they have the capacity, like the actual time to be able to complete it. So if they don't cross off all 3 of those, and if it's not a 1 degree of separation at this point, it's not the right hire for us. And it's really black and white at that point. It's a yes or a no. So anytime when we're building the team, it's usually out of referral. Do they fit this mold? And then that's where we go. And it's usually the process is what we're hiring for. It's not necessarily the person. So like when you look at the company at a totality, you look at each specific process, and then that process is what you're hiring for. So it's like, how can I find the correct who to own this process, who loves the process, they're the GWC for that process, and then they could own it, and then they report on it, and they just love it. And that's what we try to hire for. I think that sometimes when you start to hire people where there's not a process that is well outlined, they have like 2 of the 3, like they get it, they want it, but they don't really have the capacity to do it. And it's from somebody that you just like found online. Sometimes the waters get real murky, and then that's how the culture starts to get real, messed with. And our biggest asset is our culture. Our biggest asset is our relationships from that culture. So if you look at the number 1 predictor to the health span now and lifespan too is relationship quality. Like, well, when I show up to work every day, I want to be able to like love the people I'm hanging out with, be able to be extremely transparent with them. I want them to be transparent with me. And like, here's the issues. How do we solve this together? So hopefully that answers the question. I think like that's the biggest thing is hiring could be really, really stressful. But at the same time, like when you have your process of hiring and you understand your filters, a lot of good stuff could come from it.
Yeah. I know you guys practice EOS in your business.
It's really important.
Entrepreneurial Operating System. We implemented EOS a few years ago. We don't follow it fully anymore, but we still have a lot of the functions that are still
Yeah.
in place. I guess, but one question for you, because one of the foundational fundamentals of EOS is, like you said, create processes and then fill those required roles with people and not create seats just for people, which I made the mistake of early on. There were people that I was friends with. I wanted to give them and provide them an opportunity in the business. So I'd bring them on and I'd create a role for them. And then I quickly realized we actually didn't need that role. So I tried moving them into a different role and creating a new job. And eventually you just have to part ways, which gets so messy. Have you at any point in these 2 years since starting SISU realized that a process is no longer needed and had to eliminate roles overall, but more specifically for a family member?
No, which is good. I think that we continually go through, like you mentioned before, pruning the business, but part of that is like you look at your organizational makeup and you look at like the chain of command through it all, and you just continue to look at the processes. One of the best exercises we ever did was identify the entire customer journey from top of funnel to bottom of funnel to post-purchase to maintenance to the whole thing. And so like along that, we plotted every single one of the processes that we hire for, that not only internal processes, but also like customer facing processes. And like, that's what we've optimized for. So up to this point, like we haven't needed to like fire a family member or anything like that. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that like if there ever has become an issue, it's usually not the person that's the issue. It's usually the process because it wasn't clear enough, or the process just evolved too much and it needed to be refined. So it's like, there's been a couple instances where like I would be really fed up with like the way like a process was performing, the KPIs weren't tracking for that process. And it's like, what the heck is going on? You want to point fingers, but then like, me being me, I'm like, all right, well, hold on a second. Like, let's take a step back, take 100% responsibility for what's happening real quick and look at the process. This person's doing this, but the process is calling for this. Like, where's the discrepancy? How do we solve for that? And so like, that's where it's just simply like sitting down with the person, looking at the process and be like, how, like, this is where we're performing. Like, how can we make this better? Like, where do you see the bottlenecks? One of the best things that we ever did was actually 3 weeks ago. We started doing these close the loop emails. So every single person on our leadership team sends me a closed loop email that tells me what they did for the week, what they're going to do next week, what bottlenecks that they're experiencing, issues that they're experiencing, any projects or rocks that they own with the status in Notion for them to be able to link to, KPIs. And then lastly is anything that the business would benefit from right now in their eyes. And I get that every single week. And it just gives me a pulse on everything that's happening. And then our leadership team is able to then like work with each department underneath them to be able to like pull that information, to be able to best put things objectively for the business in a way to we're able to continue to grow it. There's no perfect business. Like every business has issues and it's always messy. I don't care what anybody says, but like that clarity that we have has let us be able to understand and make better, more informed decisions, and also be able to like keep a very clear communication line with everybody on our team.
I was on this, I think that's great. It's very, very intentional. I was on this hunt a few months ago, and on this hunt was founders and executives from businesses that range from, a couple million to multi-billion, and private to public. Broad range. But meeting with these founders and these executives, what I learned is, like you said, no matter what business, where it's at, there's always pieces that are messy. There's always pieces that are being worked on and improved. We never have all the answers. But what I learned on this hunt was just that. I was talking to these business execs, multi-billion-dollar organizations, publicly traded, that are having the same issues as a company that's doing $5 million in revenue.
Yep.
And I'm like, you know what? This makes me feel really good that I'm not alone. We're all going through it. There's Evolution's business trying to maintain a really, really strong, healthy culture Because if the people are happy, typically, in most cases, the business is going to be happy.
Yeah.
And if the people believe in the business, the consumer is going to feel and see that, and they're going to believe in the business as well. Culture is like this lofty thing that gets thrown around all the time. And I think a lot of people look at culture thinking that it's this thing that you buy or you lease, and you inject it into the business, and it just permeates throughout. But it starts up top, starts with leaders, and primarily developing and hiring the right people to bring the right people, put them in the right seats for that team.
Yep.
Culture is this always living, breathing thing that is made up of the individuals of the organization. And everyone has an obligation and responsibility to maintain and build and hold the standard of that culture. So if there's a culture you don't like in the organization you're a part of, you have the ability to make the change.
Yeah.
You have the ability to raise your hand and speak up, but don't just let it get worse. Actually be the change that you want to see.
Yeah, no, you are 100% right. And I think, like for me, like it's easier for us to say like, yeah, like we could build culture because like we're leading our organizations, but it's a completely different scenario when like you just got introduced to an organization that has like 30, 40 people and you don't like the culture that you're experiencing. Like, if you are a leader, like, yes, you could speak up, do it in like a very respectful way, or change your environment. One of the best things you could ever do is like change your environment when things get like, when you feel stuck, changing the people you're around or changing the environment you're around is an easy way to be able to like have jet fuel on your life. And I saw it, for me personally, like when I was able to start going around the US to visit like different people that we're partnering with on the brand and be able to see their lifestyle and like see what makes them tick and like gravitate toward that. It was like, oh man, like I feel like I've been like operating on reserves. Like I need to lean in even harder on like the stuff that I want to do, because like I get to see the way that, Nick Bear trains. Sweet. Like I could pull some stuff, be a sponge around you and be able to apply it to like what I'm doing. It was like, just to be able to like see the way that you approach something, like maybe that's going to push me into like that next phase of like my entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
So it's just like, again, I realize that not everybody has the opportunity to be able to just like immediately put themselves around people that are like super successful. But I think that you start by understanding like there needs to be a change. And if you're not around people that are, successful or people that you look up to in terms of values, like create that for yourself. Like be that person that like attracts the people around you to want to live a higher value life. So it all just starts with change though.
I agree. Well, Pete, brother, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the good conversation.
It was good.
The great sauna sessions. I'm about to go train.
It's gonna be fun.
And I can't wait for it.
Can't wait, man.
All right, man. Thanks for being on here. Appreciate your time.